Darren Chester, thank you very much for coming in. Can I start by asking, why isn't there any transparency yet about what the Nationals are getting in return for their support of net zero?
Well, great to join you, Leigh. And what I must first of all point out is the Cabinet will meet to discuss the details of the arrangements that the National Party agreed to just yesterday. So it's a question of going to Cabinet first. I expect there'll be some further announcements once the Cabinet's had the chance to meet and look at what's been proposed. So look, I think that will come out pretty clear in the days ahead.
So to be clear, so does it mean you guys have got a stated position that you want to take to the Cabinet and you want your coalition partners to sign off on it? It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get it. That's what you'd hope for.
Well, the process we went through, Leigh, we were briefed on the plan by the Minister Angus Taylor a bit over a week ago now, and we expressed some reservations about just some of the concerns around how regional communities would structurally adjust to the changed environment we're working towards. And we put forward some ideas of how we'd like some assurances around that, and we wrote to the Prime Minister, and he responded formally to the National Party. And I've got to say, it was a very respectful, it was a very moderate, a very calm meeting yesterday. There were differing views. Obviously, there's going to be different views on such a tough issue, and we agreed on a position to take back to the Cabinet. So it's been I understand from the outside people were saying, gee, why did it take you so long? Well, there's a lot of things to go through in terms of, when you think of regional Australia, they're the regions that are going to have the most impact, likely to be most impacted by any change in policy. When you think about the resources are in those regions, you've got a high exposure to transport cost, major agricultural sector, all industries that are likely to be heavily impacted by changes in government policy.
People talk a lot sometimes about how moving away from carbon is going to have a negative impact on places, including in regional Australia. But what about if we flip that around? If Australia doesn't pick up the pace of the transition away from carbon, what would be the impact on regional Australia?
Look, I think you raise a really good point. It's a point that many people in my electorate of Gippsland raise with me as well. They want to talk about being part of the solution here. They're saying, yeah, we've got Latrobe Valley coal-fired power stations now. They've been a very important part of the economic fabric of southeastern Australia for a very long time now. But they accept by about 2040 or so, Loy Yang A, Loy Yang B won't be producing energy anymore. So they want to see, well, what does the new frontier look like? And you look at the Loy Yang situation, there's projects underway right now taking that brown coal from the pit there at Loy Yang, and there's a hydrogen energy supply chain project underway. Massive investment by the federal government, the state government, the Japanese government and business partners. So they're seeing that transition occurring in our community already, and they want to be part of the conversation. They want to know that the government has a long-term plan. What I found in my time in the job, Leigh, there's a real reluctance around taxes, but they seem more accepting of our approach around technology and recognising that things like solar panel on rooftops, you've seen a massive personal investment by Australians into that as well. So regional people are not blind to the challenges, and they're willing to invest and take up the challenge, and they've been part of the solution. They want to be part of the solution.
The focus going into Glasgow from other countries seems to be looking at 2030 and what plans are so that they can be judged on the short term. Is Australia lagging behind on this front by sticking to its existing 2030 target?
Look, I think we have been a bit guilty in our nation of talking ourselves down a bit in terms of our achievements here. We met our 2020 targets. We're on track to meet our 2030 targets. A lot of countries haven't done that. When you look at our performance as a nation compared to, say, Canada, the US or New Zealand or Japan, we're actually hitting our targets and reducing our emissions. I think we're 20% down since 2005. That hasn't all been government policy. Some of that has been mums and dads putting their hands in their own pockets, putting the solar panels on their roof. We're one of the biggest investors in solar panels. So I think Australians have a better story to tell at Glasgow than perhaps some of the media commentary from time to time would suggest. But in terms of what the Prime Minister has proposed going forward, the net zero emissions by 2050, I support that direction, and the majority of my party room support that direction, because we recognise the world is moving and regional Australia is changing too.
Climate change, as we know it, is linked to more frequent extreme weather events. You represent a region that was devastated by the 2020 bushfires. How well along is the recovery now, particularly given we're about to hit yet another bushfire season?
Yeah, I'd have to say, Leigh, and I want to reassure people in those bushfire impacted areas that we know some of the recovery efforts have been a bit slow, and some of it's been impacted by COVID. I've got to acknowledge that, and getting projects done and rolling out that money. But a lot of funding has been committed by both state and federal governments. In my community, it has been a bit frustrating in terms of getting people back into their home communities, getting homes re-established. It has been something that I'm very concerned about as we approach another bushfire season. And more broadly, Leigh, when I talk to my community about environmental issues, they want to talk also about things like hazard reduction for bushfires. They want to know that we're doing that critical work to protect their communities. So we need more resources on the ground in these regional communities doing natural resource management, things like hazard reduction, clearing around critical infrastructure. They want to know what we're doing about pest, plant, animal control, biodiversity. The whole suite of environmental measures are part of the conversation when you get out into regional communities. It's about emissions, obviously, but it's also about the broader conversation about natural resource management.
Darren Chester, thank you.
Thanks, Leigh.
Hi, I'm Leigh Sales. Thanks for watching this story. If you'd like to watch more of 7:30's stories, they are on the left of your screen. And tap on the button below to subscribe and get the latest from ABC News.